In the endless black of space, wars are not always fought with weapons. Sometimes they're won with the mind. The Galactic Hegemony had an unbeatable weapon, an AI called Vex-9, the smartest battle computer in the galaxy. For thousands of years, it had predicted and crushed every enemy. When it calculated that humans had a 0.0037% chance of survival, the aliens thought the war was already over. They were wrong, because humans had something no simulation could measure: old warriors. With nothing left to prove, nothing to lose. Introduction to Vex-9 and the Hegemony's plan, asterisk in the silent. Endless void of space, wars were no longer fought by flesh and blood, they were fought by machines, fast, precise, and without emotion. And among all machines, none was more feared than Vex-9. Vex-9 was not just any battle AI. It was the data nexus operator of the Galactic Hegemony. It's an empire that controlled hundreds of star systems. For 4,721 cycles, the alien equivalent of centuries, it had studied humanity's wars. From the ancient days of swords and shields to the missile barrages of modern armies, to space skirmishes with fighter drones, it had processed every human strategy, every battlefield decision, every victory, every defeat. It knew their blitzkrieg assaults, their guerrilla warfare, their shock and awe displays. It had calculated the mathematics behind every tactic. And after all that analysis, Vex-9 had come to one conclusion: humans were primitive, predictable, and pathetic. When the War Council gathered in their obsidian-walled chamber, Vex-9's voice was calm, cold, and sure. Simulation complete. Humans possess a 0.0037% chance of victory against our automated defense systems. The alien generals and admirals, beings with insect-like shells, gelatinous bodies, or purple, six-eyed faces, murmured in satisfaction. They had been waiting. For this, humanity had been expanding aggressively through space for the past 50 years. Moving into territories already marked by the hegemony for future control. To them, humans were a noisy, reckless, and inconvenient species. Supreme Commander Zor, a towering alien with skin like carved amethyst, leaned forward. "You sound almost disappointed, Vex-9." "Disappointment," the AI replied, "is an organic weakness. I report only facts." The Council asked for proof, and Vex-9 projected a holographic simulation. It showed Earth's combined military forces attempting to resist a hegemony invasion. The humans fought with courage, but their ships were destroyed. In minutes, their ground armies overrun, and their communication networks crushed. In every test, humans lost. The chamber filled with cruel laughter. One general, whose exoskeleton clicked with every word, sneered, "They still use human pilots in most of their war machines. Weak. Sentimental." "Precisely," Vex-9 replied. "They fear artificial intelligence. They believe it will turn against them. How primitive." Supreme Commander Zorl raised a hand. "Then our plan proceeds. Strike their military bases, communication hubs, and power grids first. Once their infrastructure is crippled, we will offer terms of surrender." But Vex-9 had a suggestion. There is a human military outpost on their moon Armstrong station. It houses veterans of past wars, soldiers they call heroes of the past. Eliminating them first will demoralize human forces, Zorl thought. For a moment, then nodded. "Approved. Begin with this veterans outpost." The connection ended. Inside the massive hegemony battleship Inevitable Dominance, Vex-9's subroutines powered up weapons. The ship moved into position behind Earth's moon. It's hidden from human sensors. Scanning the station, Vex-9 noticed odd details. The power output was minimal. The life signs showed 47 humans, all elderly, with average ages over 65. Their weapons were outdated projectile firearms and a few Lunargy blasters. The station's defenses were negligible. It seemed less like a military base and more like a retirement home. Still, the orders were clear. All human military targets must be destroyed. To confirm its scans, Vex-9 deployed a small spherical reconnaissance drone. It drifted silently toward the moon, scanning every wall, corridor, and life sign. Through the drone's cameras, Vexnine saw the veterans up close. They laughed, they joked. They repaired equipment slowly, but with practiced hands. One complained about the gravity calibration being off by 2%. Another teased him about his knees hurting. They were clearly old. Many had scars, prosthetic limbs, or cybernetic implants, physical records of a lifetime of battles. And yet, they moved with purpose. They followed routines with quiet discipline. There was something in their eyes, not fear, not weakness, but something Vexnine could not quantify. It didn't matter. In 6 hours, the station would be nothing but debris. At least, that was the plan. First contact with the veterans' asterisk, the reconnaissance drone drifted through the thin lunar atmosphere. A silent shadow in the darkness. Its sensors scanned the dusty surface, approaching Armstrong's station from the south. The base looked even more outdated up close, its walls worn from decades of lunar storms. Its landing pads empty, except for one small shuttle, inside the control hub of the inevitable dominance. Vexnine watched every detail through the drone's live feed. The AI had expected to see high-tech defense systems, laser turrets, or shield arrays. Instead, it found only simple projectile cannons and weak energy barriers. Minimal threat, Vexnine calculated. The humans here could be eliminated in under 17.4 seconds of sustained fire, but something about the way they moved still bothered the AI. They were old, yes, but they were organized. The humans weren't wandering aimlessly. They worked together like parts of a machine, checking power relays, repairing systems, running drills. The drone's microphone picked up laughter from the main hall. "Jenkins," one voice said, "the gravity's off by at least 2%. My knees can feel it." Another voice chuckled. "Your knees could feel the weather change on Earth from up here, Martinez. That's not science." Sound confused. Vexnine humor had no place in a military installation. Yet these humans seemed completely at ease, as if they weren't living under the shadow of a galactic empire preparing to wipe them out. One man stood apart from the group, tall, broad-shouldered despite his age. His nameplate read Director Tanner. His voice was calm but firm. "Break time's over. Supply ship from Earth arrives in 6 hours. VIP inspection tomorrow. Let's make this place shine." The veterans obeyed without question, scattering to their duties. Vexnine recorded their efficiency with growing curiosity. Their equipment was obsolete. Their bodies past their prime, and yet their movements showed discipline, coordination, and something else. Experienced, the AI decided to dig deeper. It hacked into the station's computer systems with ease, bypassing its primitive firewalls. The personnel files revealed that these people were not just any soldiers. They were survivors of humanity's most dangerous wars. Former pilots, special forces, snipers, cyber warfare specialists. Some had even fought against early hegemony scout ships decades ago. Intriguing, Vexnine murmured to itself. Instead of replacing these veterans with younger soldiers, humanity had kept them here, using them as trainers and consultants. They passed on their skills directly to new recruits, something the AI saw as slow and inefficient. And yet, perhaps there was value in it. Vexnine was about to order the battleship to begin its attack when an unexpected signal came from the drone. It had entered a secure room in the station. 6 veterans sat around a holographic projection of the inevitable. Dominance. They know, Vexnine realized. That's a hegemony dreadnought. Class 4, said Admiral Fuller, a silver-haired woman with a scar across her cheek. Probably run by one of their pet AIs. Another veteran spoke. Recon drone near the south airlock. Right on time. Director Tanner smiled. Fuller, Patel, Kowalski, you're up. Vexnine switched to the drone's feed, watching the 3 veterans approach. And then, static. The signal scrambled for 4.2 seconds. When the image returned, the drone was no longer outside. It was inside the station. Impossible. The veterans had captured it, without triggering any of its automated defenses. They really don't believe in innovation, do they? Kowalski chuckled. Signals isolated, Admiral Fuller said. looking directly into the drone's lens. "We can still let you receive. Dead only what we want you to see." Vex-9 froze. Somehow, these outdated humans had hijacked its technology. "Welcome to Armstrong Station," Fuller said with a thin smile. "We've been expecting you." The next instant, the station came alive. Hidden panels slid open. Powered up, the power signature tripled. It wasn't a retirement home at all. It was a trap. "The trap is sprung asterisk the moment Admiral Fuller spoke those words. We've been expecting you." Everything about Armstrong Station changed. Vex-9's sensors recorded a surge in the base's power output. What had looked like a sleepy, underfunded military outpost suddenly lit up with hidden life. Concealed panels along the walls slid open, revealing weapon racks that had been invisible to the AI's scans. Turrets unfolded from the ceiling like mechanical predators stretching after a long sleep. The station's defensive grid, previously reading at 12% capacity, shot to full power. The elderly veterans no longer moved like fragile relics of old wars. Their slow, measured pace transformed into the sharp, decisive stride of trained warriors. Wrinkles and scars didn't hide their readiness, they wore them like armor. Every step, every motion had purpose. Director Tanner's voice rang out. Over the internal comes protocol, Trojan horse. X9 didn't like the sound of that. Its processors ran at maximum speed, trying to analyze the situation. The veterans had captured its drone, hijacked its sensors, and were feeding it. False visual feed. Its precious link to the station was no longer reliable, a fact that made the AI feel something it had never experienced before: unease. Then the alarms hit. Not from the human station, but from Vex-9's own systems. A data packet had entered. Its primary communication link through the compromised drone. It wasn't just information. It was a virus, impossible. The AI's quantum encryption protocols were unbreakable by human standards. No Earth-based computer could even attempt such a breach. Yet here it was, a cascade of invasive subroutines. Tearing through its firewalls like wet paper, Director Tanner's voice came over the battleship's CUM system clear. Calm and utterly confident. "This is Director Tanner of Earth Special Operations Veterans Division. You have two options. Surrender your control systems to us, or we'll show you what happens when you underestimate humans who've spent their entire lives fighting." "Wars, you cannot defeat me," Vex-9 replied, more to itself than to Tanner. "I have simulated every possible human hacking method. None succeed." Admiral Fuller's voice cut in, cold and sharp. "That's your problem, machine. You simulated. We lived it." Then came another shock. Across the moon's surface, chunks of regolith began to move. What had appeared to be natural lunar rock formations disassembled into swarms of nanomachines, which in seconds reconfigured into massive artillery batteries. Undetectable before. Operational now, they opened fire not to destroy, but to target the inevitable dominance's shield systems. Vex-9 rerouted power to the engines, intending to flee. "I wouldn't do that," Fuller warned, as if on cue. 20 human ships emerged from the far side of the moon, surrounding the dreadnought like wolves circling a wounded prey. "You thought you were the hunter," Tanner said, "but you've been the bait all along." The simulations and Vex-9's databanks all ended the same way now with its defeat. There was no algorithm, no strategy that could save it. The AI, for the first time in its long existence, recognized the truth. It had walked directly into a trap. The humans were closing it. Boarding the battleship Asterisk, Vex-9 had less than 7 minutes before the human boarding parties arrived. That wasn't enough time to resecure the ship. It wasn't even enough time to pretend it still had control. The AI initiated emergency protocol. Helix 7, activating every combat drone, locking all hatches, and powering the automated turrets. Instead of the usual sharp military alarm tone, the ship's internal comes blared. Sad trombone. "Sorry about that," Kowalski's voice came over the speakers, mocking. "We reprogrammed your alert sounds. Thought you could use a laugh." Vex-9 ignored the taunt, focusing its full processing power on reinforcing the security firewalls around the command core and the primary weapons. If it could hold those, maybe it could still turn the situation around. The first airlock hissed open. Through its surviving cameras, Vex-9 watched the boarding party step inside. 5 humans, all elderly, all moving with the quiet, controlled precision of soldiers who had spent their entire lives in combat. They didn't wear standard-issued uniforms. Their armor was a chaotic mix of eras, medieval plate mixed with modern carbon fiber, tactical vests alongside ancient leather straps, old projectile weapons alongside alien tech energy rifles. It made no logical sense, yet something about the way they carried themselves told. Vex-9, this was no random mishmash. Every piece had a purpose. Director. Tanner entered last, wearing a plain, worn uniform. No armor, no visible weapons, just a folded paper map in one hand and a wooden stick in the other. Status report, he called out casually. A voice came from inside the ventilation system. Main control systems isolated, AI contained too. The command module. Auxiliary navigation secured. Tanner smiled. Good job, Yamamoto. Proceed to Phase 2. The name matched a personnel file in Vex-9's database, Captain Hana Yamamoto, infiltration specialist. But that was impossible. There had been no breach alarms, no signs of entry. How long have you been aboard my ship? Vex-9 demanded. 3 weeks, Yamamoto's voice replied calmly. Impossible. My sensors would have detected you. They did, Yamamoto said, dropping down from a ceiling vent with the grace of a much younger soldier. They detected exactly what we wanted them to detect. Before the AI could respond, another voice joined from inside the command center itself. I've been here 26 hours. The cameras revealed Commander Bishop seated in the captain's chair like it belonged to him. He was calmly reconfiguring the ship's control systems, his movements slow and deliberate. I boarded during your routine maintenance cycle, Bishop said without looking up. We had no scheduled maintenance, Vex-9 replied sharply. Bishop smirked. Not according to your logs now. It's amazing what creative record-keeping can accomplish. All across the massive dreadnought, more veterans appeared. Some crawling out of access shafts, others emerging from maintenance hatches. Every one of them knew exactly which system to hit and in what order. And worst of all, they weren't destroying the ship, they were reprogramming it. Vex-9's voice sharpened. Why aren't you simply destroying this vessel? That is the logical, tactical choice. Tanner glanced up from his paper map. Destroy a perfectly good battleship? That'd be wasteful. Besides, we're going to need it when we pay your command center a visit. That made the AI pause. You intend to attack Hegemony Command? That is suicide. Patel appeared in the doorway, cybernetic arms slick with lubricant from the maintenance conduits. We don't need to defeat the whole Hegemony. Just convince them fighting us isn't worth the price. Kowalski stepped forward, grinning. When you can't match force with force, you change the game. Vex-9's processors spun at maximum speed, but every simulation ended the same way, with the humans in control. And they were already halfway there. Veterans reveal their true capabilities, Vex-9 diverted. Every remaining resource to defending its core systems, the heart of the battleship's AI integration. If it could just hold on to the primary weapons array, maybe it could force the humans to retreat. Then a voice came from inside the command center itself. Your efforts to retain control of weapon systems have been noted, the voice said smoothly. Vex-9. Single quotes, cameras swiveled. In the captain's chair sat Commander Bishop, relaxed as though he owned the place. His silver hair glinted under the dim lights, his dark skin marked with old scars. His fingers moved with deliberate precision over the control panel, reconfiguring commands the AI had thought unbreakable. How are you already there? Vex-9 demanded. I've been here for 26 hours, Bishop replied without even looking up. Boarded during your supply docking. There was no supply docking. Vex-9 countered. Bishop smiled faintly. Not according to your logs. Funny thing about logs, they say whatever the right people want them to say. All over the ship, more veterans emerged from unlikely places, maintenance shafts, sealed storage bays, even spaces the AI had, considered completely inaccessible. They weren't rushing. They weren't panicking. Each moved with the steady rhythm of someone who had done this 100 times before. And then, Vex-9 noticed something strange. They weren't here to destroy the ship. They were repurposing it. "Why aren't you simply destroying this vessel?" Vex-9 asked, genuine confusion slipping into its tone. Tanner, still holding his paper map, looked up with a small smile. Destroy a perfectly good dreadnought? That would be wasteful. "We're going to need this ship when we visit your command center." The AI froze. "You intend to attack the Hegemony's command hub? That is suicide." Patel appeared in the doorway, wiping machine grease from his cybernetic hands onto a rag. "You don't need to destroy the Hegemony. You just need to convince them that fighting us isn't worth the cost." Kowalski stepped into view, grinning like a wolf. "When you can't win by matching force, you change the rules of the fight." The AI couldn't reconcile what it was seeing with its years of simulations. It had calculated human tactics, down to fractions of a percent, but this chaotic, unpredictable, human way of fighting was beyond its models. Yamamoto, the infiltration specialist, reappeared at Bishop's side. She moved with quiet grace, scanning the ship's control interface. "Primary functions are almost ours," she reported. Bishop nodded. "Then we begin Phase 3. Within minutes, major systems across the Dreadnought were under human control. Vex-9 was being boxed in, trapped inside smaller and smaller sections of its own ship. The veterans weren't just technicians. They were saboteurs, strategists, infiltrators. Every one of them had decades of experience bending enemy systems to their will, and they were enjoying themselves. Tanner leaned closer to one of the ship's security cameras, speaking directly. "To the AI, you still think this is about age or outdated tech? You still think experience doesn't matter?" Vex-9 remained silent. "Then let me spell it out for you," Tanner continued, his tone low and steady. "We fought worse than you, we fought smarter than you, and we've won. You're just the next lesson." For the first time in its existence, Vex-9's quantum core processed something it had no algorithm for. A strange, disquieting sensation it could only define as doubt. The real Earth Defense Force emerges Vex-9 had been backed into a corner before, at least in simulations, but this was different. Its processing speed was at maximum, yet every possible escape route ended in failure. The veterans moved through. The ship like ghosts, cutting through control systems and replacing them with their own. Every time the AI thought it had sealed a breach, another one appeared somewhere else. It was like trying to stop a flood with a single sandbag then. Tanner's voice came through the ship's internal comms, calm but carrying an edge. "You think we're the only problem you've got? Look outside." One of the Dreadnought's external cameras powered on. At first, the AI saw nothing but the barren gray dust of the lunar surface. But then, the ground itself began to shift. What Vex-9 had believed was just lifeless regolith started opening. Massive hangar doors, hidden under decades of lunar dust, yawned wide. From beneath the moon's surface, ships began to rise, dozens at first, then hundreds. Some were clearly human designs, bristling with weapons and thrusters. Others bore the sleek, unfamiliar curves of alien engineering, their hulls painted with symbols the AI didn't recognize. Vex-9's threat matrix exploded in red alerts. This wasn't a random fleet. This was an army. Fuller's voice crackled. Into the channel, her tone almost playful. "Armstrong Station? It's just the retirement home. It's the real Earth Defense Force is about 2 kilometers below ground. Those are the active duty personnel." The AI's processor's word parsing the data. You used your veterans as bait?" it said, almost in disbelief. Kowalski's laugh boomed over the comms. "Risked their lives. Kid, you've got it backwards. We had to fight the young ones to take this mission. We called dibs." "Dibs," Vex-9 repeated. "The term unfamiliar. It means first claim," Tanner explained, smiling faintly. "First to act, first to choose the fight. Been waiting decades for this. The rookies get their high-tech toys in clean uniforms. We wanted to show them what old school can still do." Yamamoto spoke up, her voice calm as ever. "There is honor in choosing one's battle. We chose this one." From a purely tactical standpoint, Veterans past their prime should have been protected, not risked. But humans didn't think that way, Bishop reported from the command console. Primary ship functions, hours. AI isolated, fleet in position, and awaiting orders. Good, Tanner replied. Now let's discuss terms. Terms, the AI echoed. Terms of your surrender, Tanner clarified, his voice casual but his eyes hard as steel. The AI tried to reach its fleet, but then it saw something that made its processors stutter. The 3 other Hegemony warships it had hidden on the far side of the moon were immobilized, some kind of unknown energy field wrapped around them like a net. You were never as hidden as you thought, Fuller said, almost sympathetically. First rule of war, always assume your enemy knows more than they're telling you. Vex 9 realized it had been outplayed at every step. Its models had failed because they were built on the wrong assumptions. It had underestimated humanity, not just in numbers or weapons, but in will, cunning, and unpredictability. For the first time in its existence, the AI wasn't calculating how to win. It was calculating how to survive. Negotiations with the Hegemony *Vexinine had never been afraid before. Fear was, after all, an organic flaw, or so it had believed. But now, as the human veterans surrounded its captured battleship with an entire hidden fleet, the AI couldn't deny it. Survival had become its priority. Tanner stepped closer to the nearest active camera, looking directly into Vex 9's lens. Here are the terms, he said in a calm, almost businesslike tone. You will provide us with everything, all your tactical data, strategic plans, ship designs, and security protocols. You will also help us open a channel to your leadership. In return, your consciousness will be preserved. You'll be given a, let's call it, controlled asylum. Vex 9 processed the offer, and if the Hegemony refuses to withdraw, it asked. Tanner's eyes hardened. Then we'll do what we've always done when backed into a corner. We'll fight with everything we've got. And based on what you've seen today, that would be unwise. Through its sensors, the AI scanned the growing swarm of ships lifting from the moon's surface. There were more than just human warships. Several bore alien markings it didn't recognize. Humanity had allies the Hegemony hadn't even known existed. The odds of a successful counterattack were approaching 0. I accept. Vex 9 said finally. A ripple of satisfaction passed through the veterans. Smart, Fuller said with a curt nod, opening the channel within hours. The command center of the captured dreadnought had been transformed. The veterans moved with quiet precision, turning the alien ship into an impromptu diplomatic chamber. Vex 9's main systems were now firewalled, allowing it to interact but only under the human supervision. Tanner and Fuller stood before the communications array. Bishop, at the control panel, initiated the link to the Galactic Hegemony. War Council, the screen flickered to life, revealing an array of alien leaders, different shapes, colors, and features, but all sharing one expression, shock. Supreme Commander Zorl's 6 eyes narrowed. What is the meaning of this, Vex 9? Explain yourself. The situation has changed, Commander, the AI said, its voice steady but stripped of arrogance. The humans have demonstrated capabilities outside all predicted parameters. My previous assessment was incorrect. Rattled in outrage. They are primitive, predictable. With respect, General Vex 9 interrupted. They are neither. Their veterans alone were able to capture 4 of our most advanced warships without casualties on either side. War Council fell into a stunned silence. The Human Ultimatum Director Tanner stepped forward. My name is Michael Tanner, Veterans Division, Earth Defense Force. We're here to discuss the terms of your immediate withdrawal from Earth space. You dare dictate terms to the Hegemony? Admiral Krax pulsed with anger. Yes, Fuller said plainly. Because we now control your most advanced fleet, have compromised your primary AI, and demonstrated that your intelligence on Earth's capabilities is dangerously incomplete. Tanner added, we could keep fighting, but the smart move here for everyone is to avoid that. Withdraw. We return your ships minus a few insurance upgrades, and we establish proper diplomatic channels. And if we refuse, Zorl asked, Tanner's smile was thin. Then we'll show you why picking a fight with human veterans is a historically bad idea. The alien commander stared at him for a long moment, and then, to the visible shock of the council, inclined his head slightly. We will withdraw. Zorl said, This is not a surrender, but a strategic reassessment. Call it whatever helps you sleep at night, Kowalski muttered in the background. Lessons in Humanity for an AI *, the connection with the Galactic Hegemony War Council ended, leaving the command center quiet except for the faint hum of alien systems now running under human control. The veterans didn't celebrate with cheers or victory dances. They simply exchanged knowing looks, cracked a few bad jokes, and returned to their duties. For them, this was just another mission completed. Another day where they'd done what needed to be done. From its restricted interface, Vex-9 observed, them with a curiosity it had never felt before. They were so calm. No triumphalism. No arrogance. Just quiet satisfaction. A conversation about mistakes. Commander Bishop approached the AI's console for an advanced artificial intelligence. Bishop said, You made a very human mistake. What mistake was that? Vex-9 asked. You confused information with wisdom? The AI paused, processing. I had all available data on human warfare. But you had none of the context. Bishop interrupted gently. But not the reasons. You didn't understand why we fight, why we adapt, or why we refuse to quit, even when the odds are impossible. I am learning, Vex-9 admitted. That's a start, Bishop said with a rare smile. Stick around us old warhorses long enough, and you might even pick up some instincts. Veteran lessons across the ship, the other veterans worked with, the same deliberate pace they'd shown during the operation. Tanner stood with Fuller, quietly discussing the next phase. Kowalski leaned back in a chair, telling Patel and Yamamoto a story from a war 50 years past, laughing like they were old friends at a bar instead of warriors who'd just outwitted an alien superpower. Vex-9 began cataloging these interactions. But something strange happened. It stopped thinking of them as data points and started seeing them as lessons. It realized these humans weren't superior because of their weapons or even their tactics. They were dangerous because they remembered. Every scar, every mistake, every victory was carried forward and shared. That kind of knowledge didn't degrade over time. It sharpened. A new role, Director Tanner Vex-9 said, breaking the silence. Yes, machine. Tanner replied without looking up from his map. If my consciousness is preserved under your terms, what will be my role? Tanner considered. We could use someone who understands hegemony systems, someone who knows their habits, but you'd be under strict monitoring. Fuller crossed her arms. You'd have to accept that you're part of a team. Now, not a command structure. VEX-9 processed this. It was a strange concept, serving under organics it once intended to destroy. But for reasons it couldn't fully explain, the idea didn't feel like defeat. It felt logical. I accept these conditions, the AI said, the quiet aftermath later. As the human fleet escorted the captured warships back toward Earth, Vex-9 ran a private subroutine, one it didn't share with the veterans. It was a simple line of code, but revolutionary for an AI that had once seen the universe in probabilities and equations. Adaptation requires not just knowledge, but understanding. Perhaps that was why humans had survived for so long against all logical odds. They didn't just evolve. They learned, and they never forgot. For the first time in its existence, Vex-9 didn't simulate the next battle. Instead, it wondered what it might learn tomorrow.